The contractor sent the certificate. The property manager approved it. The contract was signed, the work began, and everyone treated the insurance requirement as finished. Then a visitor was injured on the project. The property manager expected the contractor's insurance to respond, but the certificate was not the policy. The customer was listed in one place, the contract required protection in another, and the endorsement that mattered had never been verified. This is a dramatized composite based on recurring commercial insurance disputes. The names and details are fictional. The question is real. What did the certificate actually prove? This is a dramatized composite based on recurring certificate and contract disputes. Northstar Mechanical, Harbourline Properties, and the project details are fictional. The insurance concepts are general education, not a statement about any particular real claim. We will follow what the customer requested, what the certificate showed, what the policy and endorsements needed to do, and why acceptance of a certificate is not the same thing as confirmation of coverage. Harbourline Properties hired Northstar Mechanical for work at a commercial building. The contract required insurance and asked for the customer to be shown as a certificate holder and additional insured. It also contained wording about primary and non-contributory insurance and completed operations. The project manager needed the certificate before the contractor could start. That deadline created a familiar pressure. Get the document accepted now and sort out the details later. The full contract contained several insurance requirements, but the email request became shorter. Send the certificate, name Harbourline as certificate holder, show additional insured status, and confirm the liability limit. Northstar forwarded the request to its broker. The broker issued a certificate. On the document, Harbourline appeared as certificate holder. The additional insured wording appeared in the description or remarks. To the project team, the request looked complete, but a certificate can record information, describe intended status, or show evidence of a policy without changing the policy itself. A certificate commonly helps a customer document that insurance exists. It may identify the named insured, policy period, insurer, policy type, limits, and certificate holder. But a certificate is not the policy. It is not an endorsement. It does not usually create coverage by itself. If the customer needs additional insured protection, the operative question is whether the policy contains the relevant endorsement, whether it applies to the work and relationship at issue, and whether the correct legal entity is protected. This is the first gap. A certificate can say additional insured while the endorsement is missing, limited, conditional, or addressed to a different entity. The certificate language may reflect what was requested rather than what the policy actually grants. The endorsement controls the scope of protection. Who is insured for what operations, subject to what conditions, and for what kind of liability. The customer may have received an acceptable document. Without receiving the protection, it assumed the document confirmed. The project moves forward. The certificate is saved in the vendor file. The customer does not request the endorsement. The contractor does not compare the certificate to the full contract requirement. Nobody confirms whether Harbourline is protected for the specific operations, whether the wording is primary, whether completed operations are included, or whether the named entity is correct. Nothing goes wrong immediately. That is what makes the gap hard to see. Months later, a visitor alleges an injury connected to the project. A demand arrives. Harbourline notifies its own insurer and asks Northstar to report the incident. Then Harbourline asks the question that should have been answered before work began. Does Northstar's policy protect Harbourline for this claim? The project file contains the accepted certificate, but the claims conversation moves from the certificate to the policy, the endorsement, the contract, the allegations, and the timing of the work. The document that passed procurement is no longer the document deciding the outcome. Claim review now has at least 3 separate checks. First, the entity. Is the exact Harbourline company named or protected, or was a related property manager listed instead? Second, the operation. Does the endorsement apply to the work that allegedly caused the injury? Third, the wording. Do primary and non-contributory terms apply, and does completed operations protection matter because the work was finished? These questions are not answered by the existence of a certificate alone. This composite does not say that every certificate is defective or that every certificate-related claim fails. It does not say that a broker, contractor, or customer is automatically at fault when a gap appears. It shows a process failure. The project treated a certificate as the finished answer instead of using it as a prompt to verify the contract, endorsement, entity, operations, and limits. The exact result always depends on the policy wording and facts. Before approving a vendor, ask 5 questions. Does the certificate match the exact legal entity in the contract? Which endorsement gives the additional insured protection? Does it apply to ongoing and completed operations? Are primary and non-contributory terms actually included? And what does the policy or endorsement say that the certificate cannot? Send the full contract requirement to the broker. Ask for the relevant endorsement or written confirmation of what can be issued. Keep the certificate, contract, and response together. The certificate passed the project review. The assumption did not survive the claim. A certificate can be useful evidence, but it is not a substitute for the policy or endorsement. The customer needs to know who is protected, for what operations, under what conditions, and with what limits. The contractor needs to know what the contract requires and what the policy can actually deliver. Verify the protection before the work starts. This has been an insurance case file. The episode is educational information only, not insurance or legal advice.